The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the box office juggernaut that has dominated both Hollywood and popular culture for about a decade and counting. What started as a crazy idea, 4 superhero movie franchises crossing over, has evolved into the biggest franchise on the planet. The MCU has churned out 22 good movies, a handful of outright great movies, the first superhero film to land a Best Picture nomination, and endless confusion from normies about which films are MCU and which aren't. No, Ma! Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern is not an Avenger! And this vast 11-year franchise culminates now in Avengers Endgame, a momentous occasion that has reminded me of some unfinished business on my channel. All of the Phase 1 MCU films have movie tie-in games, and in the early days of my channel, I reviewed 4 of them. Technically 5 because I'm still convinced that Avengers Battle for Earth was an aborted movie tie-in. Basically, if you own a Wii, Iron Man is the only good one, and if you own an Xbox 360 or PS3, then Captain America is the only good one. But I never got around to covering the game based on The Incredible Hulk. So let's snip that dangling thread and finally finish out the series. Oh, that roar sounded like garbage. We may be in trouble. The game begins with a scene that was cut from the movie and then referenced in The Avengers. Bruce Banner heads to the Arctic and tries to kill himself, but ends up hulking out instead. And then it smash cuts to Bruce on the run from the military in Latin America with no context. You get a tutorial fighting military goons. It's basically just mashing B to punch out some waves of troops in mech suits. The punches only travel in a straight line, they have almost no range, they stop you from moving, and the soldiers are tiny and agile. It feels less like combat and more like chasing down squirrels trying to land hits. One innovative feature of the game is that you control the camera with the Wii Remote's pointer, which is standard, but the camera only moves if you're holding the minus button. It's a pretty good system, and it cuts down on accidental camera motions. Of course, the Hulk escapes, and you get an introduction to General Ross and Blonsky, 2 military dudes who are obsessed with the Hulk. And then, with zero explanation or transition, Hulk is suddenly in a city, and then a ship comes down and starts deploying soldiers that shoot up the place. So, who else is confused? You rescue longtime ally of the Hulk in the comics, Rick Jones, and he's investigating the Enclave, a secret order of scientists who regularly test out their weapons on the citizens of this city. The game is set in Manhattan. We're expected to believe that nobody notices an unsanctioned military blowing up civilians with laser guns and Star Wars ships in public in a major U.S. city on a daily basis. I can't decide if that's a political statement about capitalism or an excuse for why the overworld perpetually looks so damn empty. Anyway, Hulk teams up with Rick to bring down the Enclave. Rick comes across as an endearing and likable character, which is good because Bruce Banner's voice actor sounds like he's trying to snipe the wholly disinterested award out from Other M's Samus actress. And he's succeeding.
I have a lot of time to think. Lately it's about Ross and the Enclave. Ross is a classic soldier. Focused, determined, single-minded. The Enclave doesn't have that focus, yet they're more dangerous.
But then again, Bruce's line delivery does line up with whatever Edward Norton was doing in the movie, because I wouldn't call it acting.
I don't care if it's mean.
So, The Incredible Hulk is a sandbox game. You roam around the city taking on missions, and every level is set in a generic outdoor environment among the buildings. And the biggest problem that I had with the game is that navigating the overworld takes forever and is so damn boring. The only means you have of navigating the overworld is a run that doesn't go all that fast. You can super jump and climb buildings, but the game doesn't really know what momentum is, and using the jump screeches you to a halt and covers almost no lateral distance. The only interesting movement mechanics in the game drastically slow you down when used. So most of the game is spent just walking through a mostly empty map to get from mission to mission, and every now and then some Enclave forces spawn that you can ignore. What's worse is the first several levels of the game don't even have the sprint ability, so you have to get around by just slowly lugging your big green ass around the map while nothing friggin' happens. Think about every sandbox game that you've ever played and how they made traversing the city environment fun. Web swinging in Spider-Man, grappling and gliding in Batman Arkham City, the motorcycle in No More Heroes, or hijacking cars and helicopters in Saints Row or Grand Theft Auto. These games have movement systems that are not only fun to use and add actual gameplay to traversing the map, they're fast so that there's minimal padding between the missions. Now imagine they stripped all that shit out and you were stuck walking the whole way every time you needed to get somewhere. That's The Incredible Hulk. And it is fucking boring. The game does have a fast travel system where you can use subway stations to warp to specific points around the city. Ironic since the movie explicitly spelled out why Hulk don't do subways, but only 2 subway systems come unlocked by default, and they're right next to each other. To unlock other fast travel spots, you have to find more subway systems, which means blindly wandering around the city hoping you stumble across a station by dumb luck. And the stations are not designed in any way to stand out so you can easily find them. This has got to be the single most poorly implemented sandbox that I've ever seen. About the only fun gimmick to the sandbox is that you can destroy buildings if you punch them enough times. The game has several landmark buildings that you can destroy, including the Baxter Building? As in, headquarters of the Fantastic Four Baxter Building? Fat Four-Stick worst movie there is! But even smashing buildings is cheap because all you do is punch a solid wall until the building literally sinks into the ground fully intact. Damn, this game is cheap! Oh, speaking of cheap, would it have killed the game developers to put any kind of a skybox into the game instead of the entire sky being a single shade of blue, or to have any music play while you're in the hub world, or to use texture popping instead of relying on blatantly obvious butt-ugly distance fog that fills the screen everywhere you go? The game just looks unfinished! And when there is music during the levels, it's all this deep, tense, suspenseful music, like this is supposed to be a horror game. It doesn't fit the tone of the game at all! A few levels into the game, you find a giant Cyclops robot built by the Enclave, and this embarrassing mini-boss really drove home for me how cheap and blatantly unfinished the game is. Little to no music, no ambient noises from a city environment, there are barely any sounds from the robot smashing things or when you land hits. So many things that should have sound are just mute. The robot doesn't react at all to getting punched or having a car thrown into it for massive damage. There's no feedback, it doesn't even flinch. I jump at the robot to punch it, you can only throw one punch in midair and then you just kind of fall helpless to the ground, but I get hung up constantly on my way to the ground because I'm just kind of stuck in the robot's body in the empty space between its legs, because basic collision physics are just hard. The game looks and plays like it's still in beta, and you never stop noticing it, from constant little hiccups in the gameplay and the across-the-board abysmal production values. The game's combat is a joke. You fight basic soldiers by running into them to kill them instantly, and most everything else you fight with a basic 3-hit punch combo. You do have other attacks, but most of your abilities either feel useless or are intentionally hard-coded to be useless. You have a few charge punches that take forever to launch, have 0 range, and you'll more than likely be hit and interrupted before they go off. You have a thunderclap attack that barely seems to do anything, and some ground pounds that... okay, I just didn't use them. Punching was faster. You can pick up cars and smash them over enemies, but the attack is so sluggish you'll only use it when you're forced to, because it's the only attack that works on tanks. You have a ranged attack where you can pick up a light pole or a tree and bludgeon enemies with it, but, and I swear this is true, the attack only seems to deal meaningful damage to a single enemy type that only appears in a few levels. You use it to fight this flying recon mech suit that dodges all your other attacks. I tried it on some vehicles and basic structures, and it didn't do squat. You can throw items and enemies around, but the controls for it are stiff and the lock-on takes forever to start working. It just feels like most of your attacks have such long animations, take so long to charge up, or have such small areas of effect that most of your arsenal feels useless. You can pick up enemies and bludgeon them into other enemies, and this worked pretty well for dispatching the heavies, but where this started to bite me in the ass is that if you're holding an item, you can't trigger the Hulk's healing ability, and it takes so long to stand still and throw whatever you're holding that I kept getting killed before I could get a heal off. Yeah, about that. You can heal yourself back up to full health anytime that you want in the middle of combat. Your fury charges so quickly that you'll almost always be able to do it, and most of the enemies can't interrupt you. Kinda breaks the combat over its knee. The only problem I had is you trigger the heal by pressing B while shaking the nunchuck, and the stupid-ass game would keep punching instead. Heal, you dumb green bastard! I think part of the problem with the combat is there's a severe lack of variety in the enemies. Every damn Enclave mission pits you against basic foot soldiers and brutes that you punch. Most of the military levels are just basic soldiers, some cars or mechs that you punch, and some helicopters that you aerial attack to one-shot kill. There just aren't any special enemies that ever force you to shake up your tactics for most of the game, and even if there were, the healing ability defangs most of the threat in combat. You kill most everything by just running up to it and mashing B. There are a few military levels with with missile launchers that pound away at your health and are super hard to avoid. They're cheap as hell, but they're the precious few times in the game that you have to think around a problem and strategize, and the few times the game shook me awake. The game doesn't really have a story. It has 4 separate plot threads that you alternate between as the game goes on. The main storyline involves helping Rick Jones fight the Enclave, who basically spend the entire game pulling one random super weapon after another straight out of their asses. The first few levels you fight the giant Cyclops robots, some weather machines, and some earthquake machines, which... the hell are earthquake machines going to do on the tops of buildings? There is seriously a dialogue where Bruce urges Rick to ignore the earthquake machines that are minutes away from devastating the city.
They're making earthquake bombs of some kind. If you can help me get to them in time, I think I can disarm them.
Why don't we leave it alone?
We can't. They're too dangerous and people could get hurt. If you like, I could go it alone.
You know, it's not that fine a line between reluctant hero and jerkass. There's also a hilarious moment where Rick orders the Hulk to destroy a weather research lab, swiftly followed by Rick lamenting that the lab has been destroyed and there's nothing left to gather intelligence.
There's nothing left to tell us what's really going on.
You want Hulk to smash or not, dude? Plotline B that takes up most of the game is the movie's plot. Bruce meets with a Dr. Stearns who's working on a cure for the Hulk just as soon as you spend several hours in missions tracking down all the shit on his shopping list, usually raiding an army base for data or stealing some tech from either the military or the Enclave. In Plotline C, there's an early level where Stearns has you steal some data from a Dr. Utrecht, and when you get there, he's mutated himself and 3 friends into supervillains called the UFOs. One guy I think has gravity powers, you just punch him. One guy has radiation powers, you just punch him. The girl one turns into vapor, you just thunderclap and then punch her. The only problem is the metal guy Ironclad. He runs around with a shield that seems to drop arbitrarily, and you just let him pound on you until he's open. Hulk beats the unholy tar out of the UFOs and he leaves, and they just get right back up and comment on how annoying the Hulk is, and they go back about their evil plans.
That could have gone better.
True. But the experiment was a success. We're more than human now. And if that thing interferes again, we kill it.
I'm sorry, you'd think that a 4-way utter curb stomping courtesy of the Hulk would have a reaction more along the lines of... Oh, and the game doesn't explain how to use the thunderclap until a few levels after this fight where you need it. Thanks, dumbass! Next, you run around the city to 3 military bases looking for a jammer. Then you run across the city several times looking for 6 dumpster trucks that are transporting nanites. Then you run across the city looking for 3 Enclave machines that sap energy from... stuff, I guess. Then you run across the city grabbing 3 Enclave bombs to throw into the water. Then the Enclave sets off some chemical weapons and you have to travel to each infected zone to clear out enemies. And then you run to each of the 5 infected zones again to destroy energy sapping machines. And then you run to each infected zone again to use a machine to decontaminate them. Over an hour goes by where you're doing nothing except tediously running across the city about 50 times while nothing else happens. Oh, something that'll get on your nerves a lot as you're running cross-country for blatant padding. No matter what you do with the camera, it will constantly swivel into the ground so you can never see what's ahead of you. Around this point, the 4th storyline pops up. You start fighting another military douchebag, General Talbot, who's obsessed with killing the Hulk. Fun fact, but about 3 years after this game came out, General Talbot would be added to the MCU on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was a devoted family man and frenemy, but valuable ally of S.H.I.E.L.D. Until Season 5, when he was tortured by Hydra, went insane, and became the MCU's Graviton. Anyway, Talbot's missions give you some desperately needed variety, blowing up a building while fighting enemies, and racing across the city dodging missiles that just wreck the city behind you. Finally, some kinda decent levels. So after a few Talbot levels, you go right back to fighting the Enclave. The Enclave develops a mass mind control device. Sure, why not? And then to kill the Hulk, they create a 2-headed Hulk android called the Bi-Beast. I know he's a character from the comics, but cripes, that looks stupid. Scientists built this on purpose to kill the Hulk. Though I am grateful to the Bi-Beast for one thing. His fight made it easy to find footage of the Fury attacks sucking balls. Their windups are so long and so easy to interrupt that you fight him by hoping that he walks into your punches. Then they kill some more time having you recover equipment for Stearns, and then the Enclave deploys more earthquake machines and sonic guns that you have to smash, and somewhere in there the Enclave makes a lightning satellite weapon that you have to stop. If you're wondering what in the hell the Enclave's plan is making all this shit, get in line, because there isn't a single cutscene or dialogue exchange to ever establish what the Enclave's motivation or goal is. Each of these sets of levels has the Enclave pulling a new weapon straight out of their sphincters, which is promptly never mentioned again, all interspersed with cutscenes of the Enclave going, "Yes, everything is going according to plan." Well, we never learn what that plan is. I am not exaggerating when I say most of the game's levels revolve around you fighting a new made-up super weapon the Enclave has made or tracking down a new MacGuffin for Stearns' research. Almost none of the game's levels tie together into a plot. Most of the missions are blatant filler that doesn't advance any kind of story because they didn't write a story. They invented a shadowy organization that you fight but never actually stop or learn shit about, and they called that a campaign. And because so many of the levels are blatant filler, you never have a sense that the plot is advancing or like anything's being accomplished. It makes the game feel excruciatingly long and like the game's just going on forever, because you're never making any tangible progress. Several of these levels have you climb the tops of buildings to destroy objectives. It's piss easy to miss a single attack and fall off the building, and the stiff controls mean there's no way to catch yourself. You fall all the way to the ground and then have to climb all the way back up. There are also several levels where you have to escort Rick in a vehicle of some kind, and you just want to yell at him, "Hey dumbass, how about you stay away from the rocket launches that kill you in a few hits until after I've cleared the area?" Eventually, they get around to reenacting the movie scene where Bruce goes to grab his data from his old school and he runs into Betty, so now we're subjected to 2 shitty voice acting performances.
My father confiscated all of it. He wiped every computer we had. But I got in there before they carted it all away. I hoped it would tell us something someday.
And just like the movie, Blonsky tries to fight the Hulk and get his shit wrecked. Though they do contrive an actually kind of decent fight where he keeps jumping into military vehicles to fight Hulk. Talbot eventually kidnaps Betty to draw out the Hulk, and you have to fight a Hulkbuster to save her. I try absolutely everything on the Hulkbuster, and nothing works. I punched him, I smashed cars over his head, I beat him with lampposts, I tried the rage attacks that barely worked. Nothing put a scratch on him. The one time the game doesn't tell you what to do. I can't believe I have to use a walkthrough for this shit. Somehow you're supposed to guess that the only attack that hurts the Hulkbuster is the ground slam, and it seems the aerial version is the one that works. But even then, only about 10% of my slams actually deal any damage. It took me a while to figure out that if the Hulkbuster is in the middle of any attack animation, your hit doesn't register, and it's almost always launching attacks. If you land on the ground too soon after the Hulkbuster uses an attack, the game will glitch and you'll get hung up on air from the attack that didn't hit you, and even if you time the attack just right, he often blocks it anyway. It seriously took me about half an hour, but I whittled down his health, and I finally killed the bastard. You throw him into a generator. What? No! 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 You have to fight this asswipe multiple times? You sack of shit! The game's programming is so crippled that you can barely damage this thing, and you have to fight it more than once? The biggest problem is the Hulkbuster will get into loops where it uses a leaping attack over and over again. It's basically invincible if it gets into this cycle. Best as I can figure, the Hulkbuster is programmed to leap after you if you get too far away from it, and jumping to use the one attack that worked sets off the distance metric and triggers the infinity jump. So trying to attack it makes it immune to attack. No hyperbole, dead serious, it took me an hour to beat this one boss. And not because I was dying, because the game is just that barely functional. So yeah, I hate this piece of shit. Maybe there's something I was missing, the game gives you no hints and I don't really care anymore. You throw the Hulkbuster into the generators again, its health jumps back to full a second time, and just when you're about to have a heart attack, Betty yells, "Hey, I'm General Ross's daughter, you should probably stop." And then the army figures out that Talbot is evil and they leave. So what you're telling me is that if Betty had spoken up at any point in the last hour, I would have been saved that awful boss fight?
Stupid! You're so stupid!
You fight Talbot in his own Hulkbuster, and for once the game's abysmal programming breaks in your favor. Talbot is surrounded by military guys shooting him, and he flinches non-stop to the bullets, so the game effectively kills this boss for you. So the Hulkbuster armor can go toe-to-toe with the Avenger, whose nicknames include the World Breaker, but is powerless to a few AK-47s. Maybe that's how the Avengers defeat Thanos. Talbot dies and you're prompted to go visit Stern so they can try out the cure. On the way, I get prompted to take out Enclave bases to bring down divisions of the Enclave. And that's it! Apparently the Enclave is just stopped off screen with no cutscene, no finale, no final battle, not even a single line of dialogue to imply that they've been defeated. The game's main villains drop out of the game with no resolution. Come to think of it, actually, we're in the Endgame now, and the UFOs haven't been mentioned in the story a single time since their introduction. They pop up at random in the city to harass you, but they never appear or get mentioned again in story missions after their introduction. This game is so freaking unfinished that 2 of its 4 central plot threads drop out of the story with no resolution. So we have the reenactment of the movie's climax where they try to cure the Hulk, and then Blonsky uses Hulk blood to turn into the Abomination, and they fight. Near as I can tell, the Abomination is only weak to Fury attacks, and since most of them have such horrible windups that they're not useless, this meant using the charged up ground pound over and over and over again. Miraculously, this fight isn't glitched, so as long as you avoid the grab that lops off a third of your health at once, he's pretty piss easy to beat. You defeat the Abomination, Hulk leaps away, and cut to credits. That's it. The game doesn't even have an ending. The movie ends with a hint that Ross's mind may be changing on the Hulk, and it shows Bruce training to control the Hulk now that a cure is out of the question. The game itself has hints of a character arc where Bruce starts to wonder if the Hulk could be a heroic figure, but the game cuts off with no wrap-up to Bruce's arc and no hint that he's made any progress with Ross. It just ends! So, final score, the game has 4 primary plot threads, and it actually resolves 1! This game is terrible! I am seriously inclined to declare The Incredible Hulk as the worst of the MCU tie-in games. Thor and Iron Man 2 on the Wii were boring and repetitive, but they weren't full of dead-air padding walking to missions, and at least they were short! Captain America Super Soldier has some infuriatingly unbalanced combat sections, but at least the basic gameplay is stimulating. The Iron Man 2 game was so horribly written that the game completely retcons its own main villain, but at least it has a story with an identifiable beginning, middle, and end. You do actually stop that game's main villains. The Incredible Hulk feels blatantly unfinished with embarrassing production values, rampant glitches, cheap design, a story that's almost entirely empty filler. What little plot exists just flat out aborts half of its threads, and possibly the most boring-ass, horribly implemented sandbox that I've ever seen in a professional game. A few people on Twitter have told me that they really like the game, only to later admit when pressed that they only like it because you can wreck buildings in the overworld, which... fine, I'm glad you had fun playing this. I was bored to tears and binge-watching Dragon Ball Z Abridged while playing it to stay awake. The game was developed by Edge of Reality, who must be crazy unlucky with being assigned rushed movie tie-in products because they also made Transformers Rise of the Darkspark, that game that killed the War for Cybertron series. Which actually reminds me of another loose end I never got around to covering.